number 5. That is winds. Now let us see the difference between air and wind first. What is the difference between air and wind? What do you mean by air? Air is the mixture of gases in the atmosphere. You know what do you mean by atmosphere? Atmosphere means the layer of the air around the earth. So the gaseous mixture in the atmosphere is called air. And what it includes? What does air includes? It includes all the gases. Example, oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide, and in some amount of other gases also. Okay, now what is wind? Wind is the horizontal movement of air. So it is a movement of air which the air moves horizontally. That means this way. Horizontal. Look at the pointer. The horizontal movement of air is called wind. And this movement of air is caused by what? What is the reason of the movement of air? Why this horizontal movement of air is there? It is because of the pressure difference between two places. Now, what do you mean by difference in pressure, air pressure? Yes, in one place, example, the pressure is something 1020, and in the other place, the pressure is something 1040 millibars. Okay, so now what is the difference between them? 20 millibars is the difference. So that is the difference between the air pressure. Now, why this is happening? Wind is the horizontal movement of air caused by the pressure difference. The difference which is there, because of this pressure difference, the wind is created over there. And the movement is, how is the movement of that air? The movement of air is horizontal. And because of this horizontal movement of air, winds are caused. So I hope you got the difference between air and wind. Now look at this picture. In this picture, in the previous lesson also, air pressure lesson, I explained you the different pressure belts which are formed on the earth. And you can see here the equatorial low pressure belt, then the mid-latitudinal high pressure belt, and this way the pressure belts are formed. So here near the equator you can see the low pressure belt, then the high pressure belt, again low pressure belt, and again at the poles in both the hemispheres you will have the polar high pressure belt. Alternate it is. So one more thing, so you know the pressure belts on the earth now. That means what? Air pressure is not uniform. Air pressure is not equal. Somewhere it is high and somewhere it is low. And as I told you previously, that air will always move. The movement of air will be from high pressure area towards the low pressure area. Similarly, the air will also move from high pressure area towards the low pressure area. And how is the movement of this air? The movement of the air will be horizontal movement of air. And because of this horizontal movement of air, what are caused? What are created? Winds are created. Correct. Now see this part. This orange arrow is the original direction of the winds. Okay. But what happens to this original direction of the winds? As the earth rotates, because of the rotation of the earth, the original direction of the winds, it changes. And you can see here the blue arrow which is marked over here is the change in direction of the winds. In this way, winds are generated due to the horizontal movement of air. Now, what do you mean by velocity? Example, velocity means what? See, whenever anything moves in a particular direction, particular means in one direction. So the speed of that thing is the velocity. Example, when you are running, you have taken part in the running race. So when you run, you have your own path to run. Okay. You cannot move anyhow or you cannot run anyhow. So you have a speed. You have one path to run. That means you are moving in a particular direction and with a proper speed. So what is that speed? That speed at which something moves in a particular direction is the velocity of that thing. So let us see what happens because of the difference in air pressure. Because of the difference in air pressure, what it affects? This velocity I explained you now, it affects the speed. See, the difference which is there in the air pressure will affect the speed of the winds. That means the velocity of the winds is affected because of the difference in air pressure. How it is affecting the velocity of the winds? See, here, less difference in air pressure, winds will blow with less velocity. And if there is more difference in air pressure, winds will blow with greater velocity. And velocity of the wind is measured. You should also know how the velocity of the winds is measured. As you know that air pressure is measured in millibars. Similarly, the velocity of the winds is measured in the unit called knots, or it is also measured in the unit called kilometers per hour, or we can say kph. So what is the unit used to measure the velocity of the winds? It is known as knots or kilometers per hour. Now look here in this picture is in your textbook, and this picture is showing you the planetary winds and the high pressure belts, the pressure belts which are created on the earth. So you can see in this picture, between 5° north to 5° south, equatorial low pressure belt. Between 25° north to 35° north, and even in south, mid latitudinal high pressure belt. And 55° north to 65° north, in both the hemisphere, south also, you can see the subpolar low pressure belt. And beyond that, you can see the polar high pressure belt, which is from 80° towards the poles in both the hemispheres. The subpolar, or we can, after subpolar low pressure belt, you have a polar high pressure belt. So you know the pressure belts. Okay. Now, when I explained you the lesson air pressure, that time I told you the winds will blow from high pressure area towards the low pressure area. So you can see the arrows over here in this, where it shows that the winds are blowing from high pressure to the low pressure. Here also similarly from high pressure to the low pressure. Okay, so this picture is clear. Now, which are the winds blowing? The winds near the equatorial low pressure belt. Which are the winds? Easterlies. Easterlies are the winds which are formed near the equatorial low pressure belt. Okay, then which are the winds which are there blowing towards the mid latitudinal high pressure belt? They are known as westerlies. Okay, so you know easterlies and westerlies. So winds are known by the direction from which they blow. Example, easterlies. That means what? Easterlies are the winds which will blow from the east. Similarly, westerlies are the winds which blow from the west. This is north, south, west and east. Directions you know. So the winds which are blowing from the west, they are known as westerlies. So remember, winds are known by the direction from which they blow. The direction of blowing, as I told you now, the direction of blowing, the condition of air. How is the air? Whether the air is moist, whether the air is dry, it depends upon the condition of the air. The duration, what is the time taken, and the regions covered. Because of these winds, which regions are covered? Again, I'll repeat, the direction of blowing. I'm talking about the direction of wind. The direction of blowing of the winds, the condition of the air, whether the air is moist or dry, the duration, the time taken by the wind to blow towards those regions, and how much is covered, the regions which are covered by this wind. All these factors determines the wind type. which type of wind it is. All these factors which are there, these 4 factors, they determine the wind type, which type of wind it is, whether they are westerlies, easterlies, or polar winds. Now this is the another picture which you is in your textbook. So there are some winds which blow regularly on the surface of the earth. Okay, there are some winds, they are blowing regularly, that means daily at a proper time. So some winds blow regularly on the surface of the earth from high pressure area, from the high pressure belt to the low pressure belt throughout the year. Okay, again I'll repeat, some winds they blow regularly from high pressure to the low pressure areas throughout the year. And which are these winds? So these winds are easterlies, westerlies, and polar winds. Now planetary winds are of 3 types. These are all known as planetary winds. Which are the